Alright, so things you will need: an Apple ID username and password, a computer, it can be a Mac or a Windows, a decent internet connection, an iOS device, an iOS compatible Bluetooth controller. One of these on the screen will do. Okay, here we go. So the AltStore installation I'm going to do is specifically for Windows. If you are a Mac user, the description is in the link below. Please follow it step by step and you shouldn't go wrong. Once you've done that, skip to the next section of the video. Alright, so in order to install it, like I mentioned, you need to do it to the letter. And so that's why I'm going to walk you through this installation guide, even though it is on their website. Firstly, these download links, these direct download links to iTunes and to iCloud are very important that you use these links. If you don't, this is not going to work. Just a warning to you. So I've already installed iTunes on my computer, and I have already installed iCloud. So what iCloud does, it installs a file system on your computer, and it allows you to sync files to your device, for the gaming purposes, but it's also necessary for AltStore to work correctly. Okay, so the next thing is you need to download AltStore. So you'll see here, download AltStore for Windows from altstore.io. We go here, we choose Mac or Windows. We are going to choose Windows. It downloads the Alt installer. So now we go to our downloads folder. Okay, and what we want to do is extract all. There we go. We're going to the Alt installer folder. So now we need to double click on the setup icon. We say next. We want to install it here, so we say next, next, say yes, and say close. Okay, now click on the Windows icon at the bottom here and type Alt. You should see Alt Server over here. Now on the right hand side, click Run as Administrator. It's going to start the Alt Server on your computer. Now you'll see at the bottom right, there's this little icon. That is your Alt Server icon. Okay, now what we need to do is plug in our device, our iOS device. I'm busy plugging in my iPad now. There we go. If it asks you to trust the iPad, just say trust the iPad or iPhone. Okay, so once your device is plugged in, you'll see at the top left, there's a little device icon. Just click on that. I've already selected sync with this iPad or iPhone over Wi-Fi. Make sure that that is selected. Say done, and you know that it's done. And you can go back into the device if you want to. And then we can go ahead and install AltStore. It's as simple as going to install AltStore and just saying, yep. Now you want to put in your Apple ID. Make sure that you get this correct, because I found that I didn't always get a prompt to say it was incorrect. All I got was that it failed. So it takes a little while to install, and there is the AltStore. It's installed on my iPad. I'm going to probably be able to open this now. No, it says untrusted developer. So what we want to do, we go into settings, we go into general, we go to VPN and device management. We say trust Gmail, which is my username. Obviously you will have yours. Say trust it. Yes, it's trusted. Good. Now we go for anything iOS 16 and above. We go to the left here and we go to privacy and security. And we scroll to the bottom, we go to developer mode. And we make sure developer mode is on. Might not work without developer mode on either. And so now it should just open. Just say allow, allow. Yeah. And that is AltStore. So now we're going to walk you through this. So if for whatever reason this did not work, you've definitely done something wrong. Go through those steps. Make sure you use the direct links. Make sure that you put in your username and password correctly. Make sure that you plugged in your device. Okay, so let's just get familiar with AltStore. You'll see that's just their news, and here's apps that are available. In order to add the other apps that are available, you can add this one, add source. This one, I'm not really sure what the UTM repository is yet. And then you can say flying head, say yes. Now, when you go in here, there's Flycast, there's Delta, There's clip, which is some sort of clip thingy. There's UTM. I think it opens a Windows XP box on your iOS device. And then there's Dolphin iOS and Dolphin iOS Beta, which is quite cool. And here are your apps. The thing about AltStore is that you can only have 3 apps at a time, and that includes AltStore itself. So that does limit you, and that's one of the reasons why I want to show you to use RetroArch and then maybe one other extra app. The other thing is you need to refresh these apps every 7 days. That's why you have to have the Alt server running on your laptop so that it can sync. So when the iPad or the iPhone is connected to your computer, you press refresh all and you can refresh the renewal every 7 days. Okay, let's quickly go through the apps that are available and discuss why I want you to use RetroArch. Flycast, I've tested it. It's quite glitchy. Delta is wonderful because it has these great on-screen control overlays. But once I started using my controller, I started to find a few glitches with this. And RetroArch plays the entire catalog that Delta plays. So I would rather just use RetroArch. Now, Dolphin iOS is interesting because it plays GameCube and Wii, and currently RetroArch doesn't support GameCube and Wii. So in combination, Dolphin iOS and RetroArch, you're gonna get far with a lot of games that you can play. And then there's also Provenance. Provenance needs to be side-loaded, but Provenance does Atari, Bandai, NEC, Nintendo, Sega, SNK, and Sony console systems, all of which can be played via RetroArch. And so you can see RetroArch covers all things, and when you start using RetroArch, you'll see why it just is a wonderful platform to use, specifically on the iPad. It's really cool. So let's get into RetroArch. Okay, so RetroArch. RetroArch is an all-encompassing platform. It's used all over the retro gaming space, and it is used all over the retro gaming space because just look at all the supported platforms. All the versions of Windows, RetroPie, Android, iOS, Xbox. You can put it on your PS Vita, your PS3, PS2. It's crazy. You can put it on your Wii, your Switch, your GameCube. That's interesting. You can put it on your Steam, and you can even install it on a web browser. So it is multi-platform, very cool to use. And so I will be downloading the download iOS 11, and later you just pick your iOS version. You can even put it on your Apple TV. That would be an interesting video to do. Anyway, I've for time's sake downloaded it. Now we hit the next hurdle in this. If you look here, if you look at the file size, 400 megabytes, it's over 400 megabytes. The trick here is that AltStore has a 300 megabyte limit, and the only reason I found this out was a Reddit post that someone said they figured out that it has a 300 megabyte limit. And so what you need to do is open this file in 7-zip. So you'll want to download 7-zip. I'll put the link in the description below. Here it is. You just download 7-zip. I'm going to actually open 7-zip because I have to open the file from the 7-zip application itself. And so we go in here and we find 7-zip has already been navigated to my downloads folder. But if you need to navigate there, just click on downloads, find your location that you've downloaded RetroArch onto. There is my RetroArch file, the IPA file. Now in 7-zip, I can actually open the package. Okay, now I just had to kind of go through here and find where the cores are loaded or saved. But after some digging, it's in modules. And so you'll see here, there's all the cores that are preloaded onto RetroArch are here. Now, you can delete ones that you know you're not going to use. Choose the biggest files. I don't want to delete Sega Genesis, so let's delete those ones. Okay, I've deleted some. I'm going to delete the main one. Let's delete that. ScumVM, yeah. Let's actually just delete all these arcade platforms because I'm not actually going to test them for this video. And let's go back to my file system, downloads, let's right click, up, there we go, look here, it's 270 megabytes. So that's the size we wanted. So that's all you need to do. Now you just close 7-zip and your RetroArch package is ready to be loaded onto your iPad. So there are multiple ways you can do this. You can copy and paste this into your iClouds folder. You just got to find your iClouds folder on your computer. There it is there, iCloud Drive. You can drag it into there. But what I'm going to do, because it just seems to work better, is I'm going to drag it. So we go here. I'm going to drag RetroArch into a folder that I know I can access. Whoops. So I'm going to select this Pixelmate. I know it's a folder that's accessible on my device, and just let it load. You see, it goes really quickly. So this is why I do it this way. Okay, so let's just go into my file system and let's go to on my iPad. You see there's my Pixelmator. I'm just going to drag this into on my iPad, replace it. So I've already done this previously. And there is my retroarch.ipa file. So that is now just saved on my iPad in the general area. So I've kept it there. I know where it is now. Now we go to the AltStore. We go into our AltStore. We navigate at the bottom here to My Apps. Top left, we click on the top left plus sign. I'm already on my iPad, so we can browse around. I need to go to on my iPad and just scroll through, find the retroarch.ipa file, tap on it. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure what to do here, so I just say keep app extensions. I need to put my Apple ID in again. Alright, it says launch alt server, connect to Wi-Fi, download apps fresh automatically. That's great, we already know that, so we say got it. This does take a while, so just take a sip of your smoothie, put on the kettle. Okay, I'm back from putting the kettle on, and there it is. This is such a great success. I've been struggling to get this onto my device for ages, and it's just because of that little file size hack. So now it's side loaded, what do we do with it? The first thing that we want to do is get the filing out the way. And so I am going to navigate to my ROMs, and you'll see on the iTunes on the right hand side here, there's actually a RetroArch folder now, which is great. So I can now install my ROMs. I think the best option is to drag the folders independently, not to just drag a ROMs folder over. This is just the way I chose to do it. However you choose to do it, whether you use a hard drive, a flash drive, whatever you do, just transfer them over and then move on to the next step. So while your ROMs are loading, what you can do is open RetroArch. I have already opened it. What it'll do is initialize. It'll unpack all the assets for RetroArch as the app, and then it will create a RetroArch folder on your iPad. So that's important because under the RetroArch folder, there's a system folder, and I have loaded all my BIOS files onto that folder. And so I'm not allowed to tell you how to get BIOS files, but I can just tell you, you need to navigate to the systems folder and put them in there. And then what you can do is go into RetroArch, go to directory, system BIOS, and just make sure that it's finding the BIOS files in that system folder. Just say use this directory, and then you should be good to go. So that's important. And then whenever you do make changes, just remember to save current configuration so that you, when you close the app, you don't lose all your changes. So now let's set RetroArch up and make it user-friendly for us to use. I like to change the theme. In order to go there, you go to settings, you go to user interface, and then we go to menu and we choose the XMB theme. And I just want to go here and save current configuration. Then you just need to restart the app. And now it looks like a PlayStation. I just love this theme. It just makes the whole thing suddenly feel like a console, so that when you open RetroArch, suddenly your iPad is a gaming console. Now this is geared, it still works with the touch, but it's actually geared towards using with a controller. It's just like the old PlayStation menu was set up for controllers. Okay, so we've paired our controller. With this particular controller, I tend to have mapping issues. The buttons sometimes act a bit weird. So I just want to make sure that it's mapped correctly. So we go to settings, we go to input, and we scroll down. So we're going to say port 1 controls. It should be mapped to the port 1 by default. You can do set all controls. It'll go through a time delayed thing where you can map each button on your controller. I'm just going to go and do it directly. So D-pad up, D-pad down. Okay, the next thing I like to set are hotkeys. So we'll go back to settings, to input. We go down to hotkeys. You'll see here's hotkeys. What this does is, so I like to make it so that I press select and something to do special tasks within RetroArch. So we go in hotkey enable and we press the select button. So now whenever I press select plus another key, it's going to create a specific command. So the menu toggle, controller combo for getting the menu within a game. So we go in here. This is a specific combo that they've given you options to. I like to have start select. So I'm going to do the start select to whenever I'm in a game, I can get to the menu quickly. Now you can quit, you can create a key for quit RetroArch, but I mean, we can just swipe up to quit RetroArch, so I don't really want that. To close content, that's important. So you don't want to have to exit RetroArch every time you want to close content and get out of there. So in order to close content, on my Anbernic, it's power Y. So I'm going to make my close content, so my select button and Y. It's just familiar to me. And that is all that I really want within there. But you can go through here and create whatever hotkeys you like. Again, I'm just going to save my configuration file. Okay, so another thing I like to do is when you start up a game, it's going to create an overlay for on-screen controls. I don't want that because I've got a controller. So we're going to go to settings, on-screen display, on-screen overlay, and if you go down here, it says hide overlay when controller is connected. So we're going to enable that. Now whenever we start a game, it's going to hide the overlay because it knows that a controller is connected. You want to go to scan directory and you want to go navigate to where your ROMs are on your iPad, and there are all the ROMs that I've pulled in as I showed you before on the RetroArch folder. Now if you want to scan it, here's my recommendation. So here, going back again, don't do manual scan. Just go to scan directory, go to your folders, find the ROMs you want to scan, and just say scan this directory. It's going to scan the directory. It wasn't doing this previously, so I think there's something fishy with the manual scan. Maybe I did something wrong or whatever, but anyway, the scan directory works really well, and what it'll do is it imports all your ROMs and it's automatically downloading album art as we go. I've pre-downloaded it now as well, just so that it's all there for the video. There's my Game Boy Advance ROMs, there's my Game Boy Color ROMs, Game Boy. You'll see that the name of the catalog is there, and then obviously there's a little icon to try and give you a bit of an indication of what you're looking at. So GameCube, it registers it with an icon and with a little CD. So, and GameCube is available on other RetroArch platforms. So watch this space. I think I'll release a video if they do release a GameCube to the iPad. Nintendo 64, I've already tested a bit and seems to work quite well. There's your album art. This is my NES, and as you can see, there's all the album art loaded. There's one where the album art didn't load. It says the GameCube edition, so that's maybe where the problem comes in. So maybe if I just change the name of that ROM, it will load the album art. Here's my Super Nintendo catalog, my Mega Drive, PlayStation. When I was deleting cores, I noticed that there is a PlayStation 2 core on the back end. Maybe there's something wrong with my ROMs, but none of them would load. I tried to scan my ROMs and they just wouldn't load here. So I'll look into that and let you know if anything changes there. But up until this point, these are all the games that I could load and seem to be working well. All right, so on the note of deleting cores, I'm busy updating here. I'll show you what I did. When you go into the online updater. So here at the main menu, online updater, core system files downloader. So this is the core system files downloader. Here are the cores that were, these look like the ones I deleted. I didn't delete the PlayStation ones, but there's an update for the PlayStation one. ScumVM I definitely deleted, MAME I deleted, Final Burnier I deleted. So they're all here that we can update. Not sure what XRIC is, but there it is. So yeah, there you go, online update, so you can put your arcade cores in there. I'm not going to test arcade today, unfortunately. And then one last thing before we do some game testing is just to let you know that now that you're using an iPad and it's connected to the internet, you can actually set up retro achievements. So you can say, yes, I want to do my retro achievements, and then I'm just going to save my current configuration. And let's get into some game testing. Obviously, Atari's going to work fine. So when you go into your game and you say run, it's just going to ask you which core you want to use. Once you've assigned it, it's going to use that one every time. Now, how crazy, I can probably play with, there's the retro achievements. I can probably play around with shaders and that, because at the moment it's just a very clinical image. But how crazy is it that I'm playing this on iPad? For me, it's just mind-blowing. I love it. I am running a 2019 iPad Pro, so your performance is going to vary from device to device. But from your handheld consoles, Game Boy through to Game Boy Advance, you should be able to play the entire catalog of games. NES runs fine. I tested Yoshi's Island on numerous cores and it ran very well for Super Nintendo. N64 was surprisingly good, but not excellent. My guess here is that you should be able to play about 80% of the catalog for N64. And I mean, that's pretty good. And that also, again, depends on which iPad you have. PS1 had a few issues loading games, like my World Cup soccer game loaded at 8 FPS, but actually played very well in the end. A game like Colony Wars Red Sun simply would not load. My guess is that PS1 will run 70 to 80% of the catalog. It must be said here that I tested this a while back on an iPhone, and the performance was considerably worse than running it on this iPad Pro, and they were about similar performance. So RetroArch definitely have done some tweaking here, and it is running a lot better than it was, let's say, 6 months ago. Unfortunately, PS2 is not available on the iOS RetroArch yet, so I'll keep you updated on that. Oh, and as a bonus, I got my 1DS ROM working. So here's Mario Kart DS running just fine and looking great on my lovely iPad screen. However, in the end, performance isn't as important because this is a free thing that you can do on a device that you already have, because you're not buying the device specifically to play these games. And so this is just an added bonus for anyone who's considering this. So who is this for? This system works better than I was expecting, way better. In fact, the controller works flawlessly with the iPad Bluetooth, obviously. It covers a huge expanse of retro games, and it will be better on newer devices, like the M1 chip and the M2 chip. This is an excellent travel companion for avid retro gamers, so if you have a controller and you have an iPad and you don't want to take a handheld device with you, that's a great idea. It's the perfect option for someone who wants to buy a handheld, but wants to hold off until they know exactly what they want. I mean, things are changing so quickly, so why not get a little controller like I have and play on your iPad or your iPhone until you know exactly which handheld device you want to purchase. Or, and I think this is the most obvious use case for this, is if you're uncertain and want to try retro gaming out first. So if you want to give it a go and see if it's for you, and then purchase a handheld device and something that's dedicated to retro gaming, then this is perfect. This is what I did. I got it going on my iPhone and I played Darkwing Duck with the overlay controllers, and it was brilliant. I loved it. So it definitely has its place, and I think you should, it's for free, give it a go, and I think you will enjoy it.